Welcome back, everybody, to the channel, the Tamara Tamu Collective, where dreams have no filter. So we are in part 5 of creativity being our superpower and diving into why creativity is so important as our superpower and why we need to every day tap in to that superpower to create the life that we want. So, in this video, let's talk about creativity and how it can remove and unlodge emotional blocks. Now, let me just put the connection because you may not be able to see the connection between creativity and emotions. Perhaps you do, but for those of you that don't, let's talk about it. So, emotions that we don't address, that we don't acknowledge, can become like, this may be kind of a gross example, but think of slime. I want you to think of a ball of slime. Do you guys remember the slime? And I actually still think it's on the market, but the slime, the little can of slime that is actually sold as a toy. You take it out of the can, you stretch it, you can form it into whatever you want. Think of it like that. Think of your emotions that you haven't addressed, that you haven't honored. They take up space in your body like that slime does. Like that slime can take up space. And it can be molded, which is we'll get into later, but it can be molded into whatever you want it to form into. But you have to address it first. You have to address the emotion first. And what happens is when we don't address our emotions, they can become blocks, lodged, stubborn blocks that just sit there and don't move. So, where does creativity come in? So, creativity requires for us to get still. When I say still, I'm not talking about sitting on the couch, watching TV. I'm not talking about sitting on the couch, even listening to music. When I say being still, I mean no outside stimulation. None. Side note, each and every day, each and every moment, even in those moments where we're making an effort to be still, there can still be outside stimulation coming in from ads, advertisements, just noise, things that we're not expecting or looking for. It just happens because that's part of the human experience. We're faced with so much outside stimulation from day to day where we don't give ourselves, we get so used to it. We normalize all of that outside stimulation, which becomes like clutter. And we normalize that and we just say, oh, well, that's just life. Well, it can be life. It is life. However, we also need to normalize taking space for ourselves with no outside stimulation and getting still and getting quiet. On the other side of that, there are those of us who don't like the quiet. You don't like, you always have to have some type of noise in the background. I hear people say, I've heard people say, and I still hear people say, I always have to have something in the background just for the noise. I have to have a TV playing. I have to have a fan blowing just for the noise. And you have to ask yourself the question, why? Why does the quiet make you uneasy? Why does sitting still make you uneasy? Why does silence make you uneasy? From my perspective, one of those reasons why, one of the answers to that question is many of us don't want to sit still and get quiet because we don't want to be faced with those lodged emotions that we know we need to deal with. Many times we don't need for anybody to tell us. We don't need for anybody to tell us that. We don't need for anybody to tell us, hey, you need to deal with this frustration that you're feeling towards this person that you love. Because many times the emotions that we don't want to face, we almost feel guilty for feeling a certain way. For example, no one wants to, when it comes to our loved ones, nobody wants to come out and say, right now I really don't like, I can't stand this person that I love, or I can't stand my brother or my sister at the moment. No one, that feels uncomfortable to say that about someone that you love. But then that frustration becomes lodged. It's going to find somewhere to rest in your body, whether it's your thumb, your ear, your knee, your toe, your stomach. It's going to find somewhere to lodge. So that's one of the reasons why. I think I will just venture out and say that's the number one reason why we cannot be still. Another example is that perhaps you're not happy. And that feels uncomfortable for you to say that there's some unhappiness. There's an unhappy emotion that you are faced with, that you have to face if you got quiet, if you got still. Because especially if you're a person where, perhaps you're looking all around your life and things may be going, pretty good for you. But you don't want to admit that you're unhappy. You don't want to sound ungrateful. But guess what? As long as you keep pushing that unhappiness away because you don't want to sound ungrateful or be ungrateful, that unhappiness is going to grow and become more lodged and more lodged and more lodged into your body. Where when you do get still and you do decide to address it, it's going to be like chipping cement away. So, creativity. So I'm looking down because I do have a few notes because this is very important. So what creativity does, and also too, before I get into that, when we are still, one of the reasons why we don't want to get still is not only Is it difficult for us to face certain emotions? But also, there are decisions that need to be made, that we know we have to make, they're challenging decisions. However, in the challenge, there's opportunity for your elevation, for your fulfillment, and for that dream to come into your physical reality as the most beautiful manifestation that you could possibly imagine. But before that, there's decisions that we know we have to face and address, and we don't want to do that. And part of that is tied to those emotional blocks. So, creativity helps to move. When you make a choice to get still, when you make a choice to be quiet, and you just decide, okay, I'm going to get into my body. I'm going to tap into my intuitive power, because really, when it comes down to it, when we're talking about creativity, we are essentially going back to intuition. Okay. So when you decide to shut off outside stimulation, when you decide to get quiet, and you say, you know what? I know this anger, this frustration, this fear that has lodged itself in my body, I'm going to address it. I'm going to do something I enjoy in the quiet. Whether that is painting, whether it's drawing, whether it's going outside, taking pictures of the clouds. Remember what I said, being creative is about doing something that feeds your soul. Period. So, when you're allowing yourself to do that, so let's say, for example, that let's just use painting just to for a simple example. And that is, you're painting in the quiet, and you're just allowing your body, your intuition to choose the colors, move the brush on the canvas. And time is passing. You're not even paying attention to the time. It's almost like time has stopped for you. And you're totally immersed in your painting. You're enjoying the process. And while you're painting, that frustration has come up. And now you choose to address it. Then as you're addressing it, that emotion could be coming out in your painting. It may be, you may have started off, let's say this, you may have started off, I don't know, drawing a tree. Then you find that you're painting fire. That's representation of the frustration. Could be representation of your anger. It doesn't matter. What is happening now is that instead of you having to chip away that emotion like it's cement, it's breaking away. It's breaking away. It's unlodging itself because you're addressing it. You're allowing it to come up. You're allowing it to come up from wherever it was that it was lodged. You're allowing it to come up and out. And this is where your alchemy, I'm getting tongue-tied. Your alchemist identity comes out. Because now you can transmute that frustration, that anger and fear into gold, into something profitable, into a painting that you may end up selling. And here's the thing, when you started painting, you weren't thinking about any other outcome. But I'm just using that as you weren't thinking about, when you started painting, when you started your creative act, you weren't thinking about the outcome. But when you allow creativity to come in and unlodge those emotions, when you address those emotions, you can alchemize that emotion into something profitable for you, into something that will work out in your favor. That's why I said gold. Gold equals, yes, it could mean money. It equals things working out for you. You using what was once frustration, what was once fear. Now you're taking that energy and you're transmuting it into something positive. Okay? So remember that. I want to also talk about, well, you know what? I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that for the next part. Okay? Because I don't want to make these videos too long, because there's a lot jam-packed in here. So thank you for tuning in. If you are new here, thank you for watching the channel. Now I ask that you like and subscribe, share this video, and until next time, cheers.